I never think of myself as a traditional painter.
Right.
It was never my intention to work with blighted properties in New Orleans. There's plenty of opportunities for that.
For that, yeah. When I talk to other artists, I'm interested in hearing how they read their subjectivity and how it drives and motivates what they do. We come from different positions at different times, and we mean to make work for different purposes.
In Vietnam, there was a long period of this traditional kind of music, and then all of a sudden, modernization kind of happens, and you're here with all of this at once.
When you're making artworks, you're not just making artworks for yourself. You're making artworks because they fit into a narrative structure that purports to define what kinds of things have value. The biennial shows are just more an opportunity to try out something more experimental for myself than to kind of do what I've been doing for the last 30 years, I guess. And some of that has been about the absence of the black figure in the art historical image bank. When it comes to representation of an ideal, and ideals that point to ideals of beauty, ideals of grace, ideals of form, all those things. So that's in the paintings I make, and in a lot of the photography I do.
Furnace. Skillful.
Did you have all your materials, or did you have to go looking for stuff while you were here?
I had a lot, but yeah, I went to Home Depot and Lowe's about 100 times.
So I must have passed you there.
Yes.
Because I was in there 2 or 3 times a day.
Oh my gosh. Goodness.
You born in New Orleans?
Yeah. After Katrina, I moved to Philly for a little while.
Yeah.
I live in Oakland now.
Hatchet. Tire gauge. Combine.
How are you powering your audio?
With a gas-powered
You
generator.
got I don't hear it.
Yes.
Anyway,
we
so it's a really quiet.
We worked really hard to make that the case.
Compass. Sandpaper. Devil's claw. Razor blade. Boom.
They're all mirrors that I made that are sort of fit in to function as the elements of the building we replace.
They're hyper-modern in a way. They suggest the kind of future potential.
Fish tape.
The land here was Claude Tremet's land. It's the Moran plantation. And I was interested in the properties themselves and their histories and in the history of labor as it's evidenced in the materials at this site.
Pipe cutter. Framing square.
I wanted to focus the project on the built materials and having these ones that stand out.
Tire gauge.
We're in an institution now that's closed.
Yeah.
With buildings that are already, fairly dilapidated.
From what I've been told, these will be renovated.
They will.
That's the story. When I was conceiving of it, there was this activity, there was this movement, slow movement, but movement, towards this goal of having, a world-class museum that would be, throughout this campus and, rebuilding the properties and restoring the ones that exist. I think it functions more as an indictment now because of the condition of the property, but it was never my intention or interest to work with blighted properties in New Orleans. There's plenty of opportunities for that.
For that, yeah. Like, is this a part of a continuing narrative, or do you go from story to story?
For me, it's sort of ongoing, really. The reason I'm making it is because I'm so troubled by what's going on. So many Chinese villages are kind of dying. They're disappearing. Like in this case, it's a village that have all their bees died. So they're pollinizing trees with their hand.
Oh, really?
Flower by flower.
One flower at a time.
One flower at a time.
In the end, instead of people tending to crops look like you have ghosts.
Yeah, so there's a lot of ghost stories. The city already is so polluted that you go to the countryside, the last little retreat has its own problem. You know, you might expect something lyrical and subtle, but when you look closely, it's actually much more disturbing.
The social realist work is a kind of part of the propaganda machine.
Yeah.
And that work has a really public kind of
A function.
function.
Yeah. Or the work that was made in the past are related to this idea of like Taoism or Confucius ideas. They were discredited, actually.
This kind of painting.
This kind of painting. Mao's whole social program was anti-old, so this representing these old paintings. So later when I was discovering for myself this Buddhist narrative painting, they connected to me deeper way.
I like what you're doing. There are people who would abandon this because it may not seem modern on the surface.
Right.
And it is modern.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
The idea of what is modern is a particularly Western idea. So I'm always really interested in how that idea of modernity could evolve in those cultures outside the West on a kind of self-conscious path. How long is it?
About 20 minutes.
20 minutes?
Take your glasses.
I think I can do 20 minutes.
It's dark in there.
Is that sofa?
Yeah, it's,
Don't let me near it. If I get too close, it's over.
The first time I experienced it was like 3 in the morning. I wake up, I hear like some horns and some drums. I'm like, what is that? It's in the middle of like in Saigon. And so I look out my bedroom window and I see a procession and they're carrying a casket and it's like everybody's dressed in white and marching band, like sort of uniforms, full on brass band.
this brass band tradition has traveled all around the world and has sort of, bubbled up in all these places. And when you ask the Vietnamese guys, like, where do you get this from? They'll say, oh, we got this from China. I'm like, I know you didn't get this from China.
They don't know where it came from.
Yeah.
They don't know where it
That seems sort of typical, though.
Yeah.
In New Orleans, they won't know where that came from.
Right.
They'll say it came from some guy down the street.
Right.
But that's not really where it came from.
In the US, you have very distinct moments where music shifts. In Vietnam, there was a long period of this traditional kind of music. And then all of a sudden, modernization kind of happens. And you're here with all of this at once.
Like New Orleans, it's just a blend of cultures where cats don't really necessarily have the straight through line to where the tradition is from.
Did you place them here so that you can get that Robert E. Lee statue in the back?
It's a duel. They're basically dueling with them. Brass bands are very popular, so it's politicizing the brass band beyond the fact that it's already politicized. The whole project is about monuments, about transformation. There is no representation of anything other than the Civil War Confederate heroes. I remember back in 1995 when you came to visit the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, and I didn't have a studio, I didn't even have a class at the time, but I managed to get all my materials, and you were going on the way from one place to another. You had 7 minutes, and you told me you'll give me 5 because you needed to eat something. And I begged and pleaded with you, and you went in there and just cut right through the BS and told me this is decorative. Pursue this. The text piece that you're doing is a lot more genuine. And that really made what I've been doing up to that point much clearer. It was just those 5 minutes of your time.
Dillard and Xavier University, 2 colleges that are historically black colleges, are not normally on the tour guide as destinations for looking at contemporary art.
I had a month's residency at the Rauschenberg Foundation.
Yeah.
So I got a chance to play in every little thing, from the clay to the welding, to my found objects assemblages, to my painting, all at one time.
That's a lot.
I didn't get a chance to do no cooking because I was a chef before I became an artist.
So you'd be cooking as art?
I don't see it being no different.
No different than making art, yeah?
I think that's the way you feel when you're in the kitchen, right?
It's
you're
creating
and you want to
something.
do the very best that you can do.
And you always do.
And it turns out to be delicious.
All right.
I could have done this piece so many different ways. I could have just dropped everything on the horn and say, Louis Armstrong blows no more. Mm-hmm. Because the organ player refused to play. Mm-hmm. But this is not the title of this. Vox Humana is look.
Oh, is that the name of the organ?
That's the name of the organ.
But these are really elaborate titles.
Yes.
From Vox Humana 2 to Information and Instructions, music is still strong after being torn to pieces. Boom, that's a lot.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
No matter what you do to my music, how you tear it apart, you can do all the harm you want to do to the instrument, but the music is in the human. All of this material that you see came together, and then each piece laid out its own story.
I hadn't been to New Orleans in a long time, and the last time I was in New Orleans, I don't think Ashé was in existence. I was asked to make something specifically for these windows at the Ashé Cultural Center. Hello. Oh, hi, how are you? Yes and no. What the piece wants to do is to cut against the grain of a kind of abjection that people associate with the recovery from Katrina. I'm doing work that sort of purposely avoids participating in any kind of conversation that points to or dwells on being impoverished or being under some kind of stress. Okay. All right, bye. And hold, right, I'm gonna hold that and, ready?
Yes, sir. So far, so good.
I feel like I'm reorienting myself towards a kind of use of form and space that I can describe as future-oriented. But let's go outside and look at it from outside, see what it looks like in front of the window. You know, and so one of the functions of the gold mirrored plexiglass, I think, is to create this otherworldly kind of space. I mean, it's sort of way outside the norm to have an environment that is just so rich and reflective with that gold color. The kind of ostentatious quality of the gold and the reflective quality of it, all those things are really important, I think. Just in the raw materials for the thing cost an arm and a leg to make it. So why would you do something like that that had no particular resale value, that was only going to cost you? Well, you would do it because you want to see what happens. You only want to see what happens. I'm only interested in what happens so I can think about what I'm going to do next. In these alcoves, they're simple things. They're greeting cards, you know, wrapped packages that look like presents. The combination of the way the angle of the mirrors creates the reproduction. And then if you look up or you look down, it's almost like you're looking into an infinite space. So there's something about that space that really encourages a kind of flight of fancy, kind of speculation, dreaminess, or something like that. But all those things are things that point to celebration, celebrations yet to come. I've been interested in Black history for a long time, and I still am. But if you're constantly being reminded of the ways in which your history and your narrative as a people are kind of rooted in loss and decay, then you're in deep trouble. Once you make a certain kind of peace with the past, then you should be completely oriented towards speculation about the future.